You prayed for union, but what came was silence, distance, confusion. You asked for love, but what you got were tests. What if the delay wasn't a denial, but a sacred preparation? What if every moment he pulled away, every karmic trigger, every tear you cried alone, was part of a divine initiation? Before union comes alignment. Before I love you comes I see you. And before you come together in the physical, you must pass through the fire that burns away everything you're not. Because twin flames aren't brought together to soothe each other's wounds, they're brought together to awaken. Are you being tested right now but didn't realize it? Then this is your confirmation. The universe isn't pushing you apart. It's making you ready for a love that doesn't just feel like destiny, but like truth. Comment, I'm passing the test, if you feel your soul is already choosing love over fear. The first test is silent. It doesn't come with a warning, it comes with a feeling, one so deep, so familiar, it shakes your core. It's the echo of abandonment. And for most twin flames, it appears in the very beginning, when the connection awakens something ancient and something broken. This is not about them leaving you. It's about what it activates when they do. Because the moment the divine masculine distances himself, the divine feminine feels a wound that predates this lifetime. It's not just about him. It's about every time she was left unseen, unheard, unloved. Every lifetime, every heartbreak, every time she gave and was forgotten. And so the test begins. He pulls away, not to hurt you, but because he's overwhelmed by what he sees in your eyes, the reflection of everything he hasn't healed. And when he disappears, it hurts. Not because he stopped loving you, but because that abandonment cracks open the illusion of control you still held over love. Have you felt this moment? The one where your nervous system screams, "Not again," because it remembers what the soul has tried to forget. The mirror is not cruel. It's precise. It shows you the parts of yourself you tried to bury with performance, giving, chasing, or even spiritual knowledge. It says, "Here, look, this is what you must alchemize." And most will run from it. Most will say, "This hurts too much. It can't be love." But that's where the test begins. Because what you do next defines your journey. Do you collapse into the wound and become it? Or do you witness it and rise anyway? He may be gone in the physical, but his absence is doing something. It's bringing you back to yourself. And your ego will say, "He's rejecting me." But your soul knows, "He's triggering my rebirth." This test isn't about proving anything to him. It's about choosing you when your heart is in pieces. It's about sitting with the ache without trying to numb it. It's about letting the pain reveal where love was always meant to begin, inside. Because here's the truth. The test is showing you your greatest fear is not that he'll abandon you. It's that without his love, you don't know how to love yourself. And that's where you reclaim your power. When you stop making his presence the reason for your worth. When you stop measuring connection by how often he calls, texts, or returns. When you finally understand he's not your completion, he's your mirror. And mirrors don't comfort, they reflect, until you stop searching for safety outside and start embodying the love you thought only he could give. This is the first test, and it breaks many. But for those who pass, it marks the beginning of real union. Have you gone through this first mirror already? Then your path is already shifting. There comes a moment on the twin flame path when silence becomes louder than any words. Not because they stopped caring, but because the connection has reached a threshold where communication is no longer about messages, but about energy. And this is where most run, because silence awakens the deepest fear, the fear of being unloved, unseen, forgotten. But what if silence wasn't abandonment, but initiation? This second test begins when your soul is craving closeness, but the universe hands you distance. When every cell in your body aches to hear their voice, feel their presence, understand what happened, and instead, all you get is stillness, emptiness, the echo of your own longing bouncing back at you. Why does it feel so cruel? Because your human self believes love means presence, reassurance, consistency. But your higher self knows love also means expansion. And sometimes expansion requires separation. Have you felt that ache? That moment where your mind screams, "Why are they doing this to me?" While your soul whispers, "What is this silence trying to teach me?" This is the test, not of their devotion, but of your alignment. Because fear will make you chase. It will make you beg, question, spiral. It will whisper, "You did something wrong. They're gone forever." But love, the kind that transcends ego and control, will do something else. It will sit with the silence. It will breathe through the ache. It will say, "Even here, I trust." Can you hold the frequency of love when nothing is being returned? Can you love without conditions, even when it feels like you're loving alone? Because the silence isn't empty, it's sacred space. It's where illusions dissolve. It's where projections rise to be healed. It's where you stop needing them to act a certain way in order for you to feel safe in your own skin. This test forces you inward. It makes you ask, was I loving or was I trying to control? Was I giving or was I seeking validation? Was I trusting or was I clinging? The divine masculine often withdraws, not to punish, but to process. His silence isn't a wall, it's a cocoon. And the divine feminine, in her depth of emotion, can mistake this as rejection. But truly, it's a mirror of her own fear that love must look a certain way to be real. The real question is, can you stay soft in the silence? Not by pretending it doesn't hurt, but by allowing the ache to stretch you rather than harden you. Because every moment you choose love over fear, you're passing the test. You're anchoring the energy that will allow union to manifest, not as a desperate attachment, but as a sovereign alignment. Most fail this test by collapsing into old stories. He always leaves. No one ever chooses me. I must not be worthy. But your soul came to rewrite that narrative, and the rewriting begins here. When you stop making their silence mean something about you, when you stop trying to fix the space between you, when you finally say, I don't know what they're feeling, but I know what I choose, love. Not performative love, not desperate love, but the kind that says, I love because I am love. That's the vibration that calls them back, not through force, but through resonance. And if they don't come back, then that love still wasn't wasted, because it changed you. And maybe that was the whole point. Have you ever sat in this silence and chosen to stay open instead of shutting down? If so, you're not just surviving the test, you're mastering it. There is a test on the twin flame journey that doesn't scream. It whispers, a quiet but persistent dissonance between what you feel in your soul and what you see with your eyes. It's when your entire being knows the bond is real, divine, alive, and yet everything around you says the opposite. He's distant, with someone else, denying the connection, acting cold, silent, logical, gone. And still you feel him, still you dream of him, still your soul says, wait, this isn't over. This is one of the hardest initiations. Because this test isn't about enduring pain, it's about enduring doubt. It's about standing in the middle of a storm where nothing makes sense and still choosing to believe in the invisible thread that binds you. The ego will scream, "Look at what's happening. Look at what he said. Look at how he's acting." And every logical part of you will want to agree, to close the book, to call it delusion, to protect yourself. But your soul doesn't operate on logic. It operates on resonance. And in this test, your soul is being asked, will you still trust the connection even when the evidence disappears? Have you felt that tension? When your friends say, "He's not coming back," and you nod, but deep inside, you feel something alive, something undone, something holy. That's not fantasy. That's your inner knowing confronting your outer reality. This test is about discernment. It's about learning to distinguish fear-driven obsession from soul-led remembrance. It's about anchoring into your higher self, not to chase him, but to hold the vibration of truth without needing proof. Because union is not born from need, it's born from alignment. And alignment requires you to stay true to what you feel, even when you can't see it. The divine masculine often chooses silence, avoidance, or logic, not because he doesn't feel, but because he's overwhelmed by what he does. And in that overwhelm, he may push you away, make choices that contradict the soul bond, or even deny what you've both experienced. But the test isn't about him. It's about you. About whether you can love without clinging. About whether you can surrender without collapsing. About whether you can believe in the unseen without making it your entire identity. Can you walk by faith, not by sight? Because this is where many fail. They take the 3D reality as gospel. They say, "He's with someone else, it's done." Or, "He ghosted me, so I must have imagined it all." And in doing so, they close the heart prematurely, cutting off the very flow that was trying to heal them. But the ones who pass this test, they let go of timelines. They stop needing signs to believe. They drop the need to control and instead become the embodiment of unconditional love. Because the irony is, the moment you stop needing the connection to look a certain way is the moment it begins to realign. And maybe that's what this test was always about. Not proving anything to the world, not clinging to an outcome, but becoming the person who no longer needs confirmation, because your soul already knows. Have you faced a moment where everything contradicted your soul, but you chose to trust anyway? That choice didn't go unnoticed. It shifted everything. This test is where many mistake surrender for defeat. It's the sacred edge between letting go and still loving, between releasing the outcome and still believing in the bond. It's the paradox that breaks the ego and awakens the soul. How do you detach without closing your heart? Because up until now, maybe love meant holding tightly, watching their every move, waiting for the message, reading the signs, asking the cards, wondering what you did wrong, wondering what they're doing now, wondering when they'll finally come back. But this test whispers a different path. It says, detach, not as an act of punishment, not as a wall of protection, but as an invitation into peace. Detachment in its divine form is not coldness, it's not indifference, it's not apathy. It is love, purified. It is desire, no longer tethered to control. It is the silent, powerful declaration, I love you and I set you free. Can you feel the weight of that? The gravity of choosing love that doesn't grasp but trusts. Have you ever felt your whole being aching for closeness, but something in your soul whispering, not now, not like this? That's not weakness, that's wisdom. This test comes when you've already gone through the pain, the waiting, the signs, the silence. And now you're being called to stop orbiting around them and start coming home to yourself. And that's terrifying because for so long, your identity was entangled in their energy. If he loves me, I'm worthy. If he comes back, it means it's real. If he stays, I'll finally be safe. But the truth is, you were never abandoned. You were being redirected back to the core of your own being. And now you're being asked, can you still love them without waiting for them? Can you hold the flame without needing it to become a fire? This is where the divine feminine begins to rise, not as a wounded chaser, but as a sovereign being, not as someone who's waiting, but as someone who's becoming. And in that becoming, she detaches, not because she stopped loving, but because she's finally loving from truth, not fear. Detachment doesn't mean the connection is over. It means the obsession is. It means the need to fix, to heal, to prove, to predict. It dissolves, and all that's left is the quiet knowing, I love you, but I no longer abandon myself for you. And here's the miracle. This detachment is not the end of the story. It's the bridge. Because when you release them in love, not pain, you make space for them to return in truth, not projection. Most fail this test by confusing surrender with resignation. They think letting go means walking away from the journey. But true surrender is not walking away. It's standing still, in presence, in truth, in your own light. And if the connection is real, it will rise to meet you there. Have you reached this stage where your love stopped grasping and started breathing? If so, you're not giving up. You're growing up into a soul that loves without losing itself. There's a test on this path that feels personal, but it isn't. It feels cruel, but it's surgical. It feels like betrayal, but it's purification. This is the test of karmic interference. And when it arrives, it will challenge everything you thought you knew about trust, love, timelines, and yourself. Because this is where they appear. The karmic partner, the false flame, the third energy, the job that keeps them distracted, the addiction that pulls them away, the family that manipulates, the fear that paralyzes, the obligation that overrides love. And suddenly, what once felt like a destined connection becomes a battlefield of contradictions. Why is he choosing her? Why is he acting like we never happened? How can he pretend this bond wasn't real? These are the questions that flood the mind, but they are not the test. The test is not about them. It's about you, about how you choose to see and how you choose to stay in your truth. Because karmic interference doesn't appear to destroy the bond. It appears to expose the illusion still living inside you. The jealousy, the attachment, the need to be chosen to feel worthy. The belief that someone else can take what is divinely yours. Have you felt that burning ache? The one where your heart breaks not because you stopped loving, but because you're watching them settle for less. That's not rejection. That's refinement. This is the moment when you're being asked to look beyond the surface, beyond the Instagram photos, the cold messages, the sudden engagement, the disappearing act, and ask, what is this teaching me about my own alignment? Where am I still looking for validation in a story that was never meant to unfold on my timeline? Where am I being invited to trust the process, not control the pieces? Because karmic interference is not a punishment. It's a mirror. It reveals where the divine masculine is still caught in patterns of obligation, guilt, trauma, and unworthiness. It reveals where the divine feminine is still caught in needing proof, possession, or pain to feel real. And it strips away everything that isn't unconditional love. This test is sacred. It's brutal, but sacred. It brings you face to face with the truth. You were never in competition. You were never being replaced. You were being shown your own capacity to love without clinging, to trust without needing, to hold your energy even when everything around you screams, "Give up." And the irony? Most karmic partners aren't your enemy. They're teachers, temporary placeholders of what he still needs to heal. They don't block union, they prepare it. So what do you do when karmic interference shows up? You don't chase, you don't compare, you don't shrink. You rise, you stay in your frequency, you anchor your truth. You remember, I don't need to fight for love that's mine in the soul. Because real love doesn't compete, it vibrates. Have you faced karmic interference and felt your heart tested to the edge? If you're still choosing love over fear, you're not losing, you're awakening. There is a test so silent, so all-encompassing, that it doesn't come in the form of a person or an event. It comes as a collapse, a crumbling, a moment when everything you built, believed, trusted, starts to fall apart. And not just in your twin flame connection, but in your entire life. Nothing seems stable, nothing makes sense. The signs stop, the dreams fade, the synchronicities go quiet, the fear turns to ashes. And you begin to ask, was any of this even real? This is the frequency test, not of your desire, not of your memory, but of your alignment. Can you still hold love when all evidence of love disappears? Because real union cannot be built on unstable foundations, and sometimes everything must break, not because the connection was false, but because your perception of self, of love, of worth, of identity was still attached to illusion, still attached to timelines, still attached to being chosen, validated, understood. This test does not knock gently. It breaks you open, it strips you down to energy, and it asks, who are you when there's nothing left to hold on to but your soul? Have you felt that moment when all your spiritual tools stop working? When no message resonates, no meditation soothes, no sign confirms. When you can't feel them anymore, not even in dreams, and your heart begins to grieve something that hasn't ended, but has transformed. That's not the end. That's the threshold. This is when you realize union is not something you reach. It's something you become. And to become it, everything false must go. You're not being punished, you're being emptied, because only the empty can be filled with light. This test teaches you what love without attachment truly feels like. It teaches you how to stop depending on his presence to feel connected, how to stop measuring your worth by his actions, his healing, his pace. It teaches you to hold your frequency, not to attract him back, but to become unshakable in who you are. Most will fail this test because they try to rebuild too quickly. They try to replace the silence with noise, the emptiness with distraction, the stillness with desperation. But the ones who pass, they wait in the fire. They allow the death. They don't rush the void. They respect it. And in that stillness, something sacred happens. Not a message, not a sign, but a shift. A soft return to self. A quiet knowing, I don't need to be rescued, I need to be remembered. And in remembering who you are, you awaken something in them too, because your energy was never separate. And when one flame rises, the other feels it. So hold your frequency, not to bring them back, but to bring you home. Are you in the middle of this breaking? Comment, I'm holding the light, if you're choosing to stay rooted in your truth, even when everything falls. This is the final test, the most paradoxical, the most sacred, the one that turns pain into power and love into liberation. It's not about reunion anymore. It's not about signs or messages or soul recognition. It's about purity. The kind of purity that only comes when your love no longer seeks to own, define, or demand, but to simply be. Because at the end of all the lessons, all the triggers, all the nights of crying on the floor and asking, why can I still feel them? You arrive here. To the question that shakes the foundation of every ego-driven story you've ever built. Can you still love them, even if they never return? This is where love sheds its skin, where the obsession dissolves, where the attachment evaporates, and only the soul remains, raw, whole, and free. Have you felt this moment? The one where your heart still longs for them, but your spirit whispers, I don't need them to be mine to know they're part of me. That's not giving up. That's awakening, because possession was never the point. Reunion was never the reward. The purpose was always this: to open your heart wide enough to love, without conditions, without contracts, without needing the story to end the way your mind once wrote it. And that doesn't mean the bond ends. It means the bond matures. It means the energy between you is no longer filtered through need, fear, fantasy, or control. It becomes a river, flowing, sacred, alive, but not chained. This is where most can't go. They say, if I can't have him, what's the point? They ask, how can I keep loving someone who chose another path? But the soul knows. It knows that love isn't ownership. It's remembrance. To love someone without possessing them is to become divine. It is to mirror the love Source has for all beings, unconditional, radiant, unwavering, and in doing so, you become a portal, not to draw them in, but to reflect them home, because sometimes it's your freedom that triggers their return, not your clinging. Sometimes it's your detachment that invites their awakening, not your effort. And sometimes they don't return, but you do. You return to your light, to your power, to your knowing, to the truth that you never needed to be chosen, because you were already whole. And from that place, love continues, not because it's needed, but because it is. Are you ready to love this deeply? To love with open hands, not closed fists? Then you've passed the final test. Not because they came back, but because you did.